Good. What's up, everybody? Me, Dave, Somethingfishyinc.net, Cleveland, Ohio. I'm in what we call Hatchery 1, H1, and next door is Hatchery 2, and then the other small storefront was called S2. And the main store on Broadview Road is S1, the main store, showroom 1. So, reason for this video is kind of help people kind of manage multi-tanks, a multi-fish room, all at once kind of thing. Time management, time is money. So especially with somebody in the business, we have to watch our time, or it takes too long, too much money, whatever. So more efficient, the better everything is, and better maintenance all around. So what I'm going to do is, not everybody has the same scenarios, but a lot of people with fish rooms in the basement, or hatcheries, or breeders, or whatever, you have a drain usually in your basement. So we got a drain down there. So gravity drain obviously saves you money than running the water of the python to the sink with the pump. You might have to use that. That sometimes can be quicker depending on your water pressure. And like if I'm just doing my maintenance at home, or some maintenance counts, I do it by bucket or I do it by the python, and I'm just running the water to get it done, and a good vacuum. Here, I can run it to the floor drain, and a lot of people sometimes gravity is free. So we mark tanks. Sometimes you notice at the store I'll put a circle or a line, something on the tank, tops need done. So I get down, these are a lot of fry tanks, I get the water running. So we can jerk water down here, so that's a plus being in the basement, commercial building. And then you see the water flow. It's not super fast on the low tanks for obvious reason. They're not that high, so a little bit slower go. So I'll go around checking, vacuum up the waste, fish poop engineer, and sometimes you stir it up, you vacuum some of it up, and then I'll let it settle, and I'll go back and do it again. So why tanks are draining, in reality, I have two sides. I have another hose ready next door, so I could be doing both fish rooms at the same time. You just time it. So I'm going to come over here because I see some tops that need done. We're not necessarily looking for aesthetically pleasing, pretty here, because it's not open really to the public. But why tanks are draining, I could be doing other things. I could be doing the fronts. I like to keep the fronts clean. The sides and the back, I don't really care. The algae, whatever, it's not a bad thing. But as that tank is draining, I could be doing other maintenance at the same time. So instead of sitting on the phone, on the internet, Facebook, some bad habits people have, and they don't get the work done efficiently in a timely manner. So here, I have a bucket of water, just some tap water, and a scrubber, and I go around and clean tanks. I have some glass tops, some plastic. I use a soft, like acrylic type scrubber on these, because if you use something too abrasive, it will scratch it. Glass is fine. So that one's about where I want to go. I crimp the hose, so I hold the suction. I move down to the next tank. So every tank doesn't get water changes every day. So we do not have a set that's like whatever tank that needs it, it should get done. If there's a lot of fish poop, it could depend on the bioload. You know, how many fish, this kind of fish, how big the fish are in a tank, how much maintenance the tank will need, how much filters, how many filters, how big of a filter is on a tank. So it all depends on the scenario. So now that one's draining, I got a little vacuuming going. I can go, got another scrubber, pad, change, you can change out the water a little bit here and there. I look for top, like here, some of these get like foggy. So I know doing videos, the tank sometimes looks like crap. Like on my show tanks, big tanks, I use like mag float, so it's easy to keep the fronts clean. But as you're doing the water changes, you could be cleaning the glass. Clean the front. Last, you go and you can wipe down the front with a paper towel. You know, this one's pretty yucky. A lot of times you gotta look up and down all around. Stuff will get missed. So sometimes you gotta get on the stool and look up and make sure everything's all right. Make sure the filters are running. Filter maintenance. It all depends on the tank. Back to the same thing with bio load, how many fish, what kinds of fish, and how much filtration. A lot of the breeding tanks, we use box filters, my box filters and sponge filters combination. They work pretty well. Some of my bigger tanks, I run power filters or canister filters. So now I have to keep in mind because I got a tank running over there. So some of this hard algae, you got to use a razor. It takes a better scrubber to get them clean. And you got to remember to go back and put the tops back on so you don't have fish jumping up out of the tank and end up dried up on the floor. It happens to all of us. Like this one needs vacuum. So sometimes you get in there and you like realize, well, there's a lot of crap that needs to be done. So as I'm draining, I'm watching, I'm doing other things. I bring the top to me, so I'm near the tank. See all that fish poop going down? Yep. So I'm checking some other tanks while I'm going through. Sometimes you'll find something else you didn't catch when you first walked in. Like this is going to drain quicker because it's a higher tank above the floor drain. So the vacuum is much quicker. It's going to drain much quicker. So sometimes I do a big water change on a tank, and sometimes I'm just going around vacuuming up the waste. Yes, it'd be nice to have a automatic water changing system, but I don't think they're 100%. You know, you have to, you know, still maintain the tank. They don't, when you do an automatic water changing system, they're not vacuuming out the tank. So in essence, you still have to go and suck out the waste, the fish poop. It builds up. It gets dead spots on the rocks like I'm getting right now. That gets neglected or not paying attention, so to be thorough, go in there and you gotta move the rocks around once in a while. You gotta be careful if you have something, egg layers breeding, so you gotta take a little extra attention and be careful what you're doing. You don't suck up babies or disturb the breeding pair. I might hold off doing a vacuuming, just do a small water change if I think the tank needs it. It's getting a little yellow. So every case is different. So checking the baby tanks. Maintenance is endless. That's the nature of this hobby and the business. So I'll bring my hose around. I'll get this tank because filter pipe should be done on that. So all that fish poop. And with the African cichlids, they're pretty hardy. They can tolerate quite a bit, but there's a certain point. And you know, I have to be sometimes more stringent being a business, and I have a lot of at stake. You know, with so much livestock. So my my crew has to pay attention. You know, you can't forget things. You know, it's you gotta be paying attention always, because it can end up in a really bad scenario if it's not addressed. You know, a water change or the filter, and then we lose fish. And some fish are very viable, they're breeders, and not easily replaced. So this is also helping anybody would come and do what I'm doing, this maintenance part. So sometimes just the front needs clean. It doesn't necessarily need always a water change, but I will lower the water a little bit so I can easily clean the glass without splashing water everywhere. Same with my maintenance. I'll start vacuuming my service calls, and this one ends up having a bunch of fish poop. Now I'm trying to avoid this piece of leaf coming in, so I crimp the hose. I stop the siphon so that leaf doesn't get sucked in. In the floor drain, I have a strainer or a net or something to catch anything. You can catch a fish, most people would stay away, but a piece of leaf or something, filter media or something, I don't want down in the drain. You want to have a screen in there to protect it, and you don't have to end up hiring a plumber or getting a snake and draining out your drain. So now, if I'm doing a big tank, like a piranha tank, that's a little tricky. I'll pass those right now. But if I want to drain a big tank, hey, see there, I want to try to bite me. Stream food. So I could do this. I think I'll bite it. Sometimes he thinks it's food coming in. If I'm doing a big tank like this, and I'm taking like 25% out, that's going to take a while. So I could turn around and do some of the smaller tanks by bucket. Wherever my single hose like this, I can come back and do the small tanks by gravity, and I could still be doing water changes next door at the same time, especially on the big tanks. So I can go back. It's utilizing time. Like there's some crap in here, food, moldy food. That's one of the big issues is people tend to overfeed or feed a tank that didn't have fish. Like this tank, don't know why. So I can go do that and move on to other tanks, check the tops, check the rims, try to keep the fish food going in the tops. That's why we got the holes. There's a top needs clean. Now some of these old acrylics, it gets embedded, so you can't really get it 100% clean, some of them. So it takes a little bit more elbow grease. But eventually replace them, but again, we're not here to make the tanks look like, you know, a 5-star hotel or whatever. But the main store, we try to keep nice and clean always. Fronts, keeping the tanks healthy and clean, and the fish all good to go to new homes. Let's see. So, when I go back to fill, that's where it gets a little tricky, is when you start filling the tanks, is you got to pay attention more. You do not want to overflow a tank. I did that at my 265 a couple weeks ago, and that's the first time in a long time. It's best by filling up one tank. Not everybody has multiple rooms like me, so fill up one tank in one room at a time, and not do two. I've done it, filling up multiple tanks, especially if it's big tanks, because it takes a little while. And even while they're filling up a bigger tank, I can still be doing the fronts, doing the lids, etc. We use Prime. We get in bulk, so we have a little spray bottle, and it doesn't take much. Follow directions on your bottles. If I'm just topping off a big tank, I don't always use it. But for my prize fish or sensitive fish or babies, definitely want to use water conditioner and remove the chlorine chlorides and chloramines. At certain times of year, certain areas like Cleveland, sometimes they inject a lot of chlorines and stuff in the water for algae blooms. So if you smell a lot of chlorine in your tap water, definitely run it through carbon and use a good water conditioner like Prime, multi-purpose water conditioner. So you gotta be careful on that. Temperature of the water. So we heat the air. We do not heat the tanks. You know, I have like 500 tanks total or so. So I base the temperature on my tallest tanks. So my tanks at the highest level are going to be the warmest. The tanks closest to the floor are going to be the coolest. I want to base them on the warmest tank, and that's how I fill up the tanks, with like 1 degree roughly. So a lot of times you can start filling up in a bucket or the sink, or using a python. You open the spigot and the pump, and you fill the water. I can feel water and tell you what the temperature is, because I've been doing it forever. So I know what the temperature is just by touching the hose. But you want it pretty much exact temperature, or just maybe a degree warmer. And then you go in, and as I fill tanks, I'm not going to do it here since we're draining, but this, I'll give you an idea. I crimp the hose, and I'll let the water start coming in the tube, and then I pour it in. As I fill it, I get underneath the rim, because some of my old tanks, they leak from the rims. Then I'll crimp it again, and then I go to the next tank to fill. I see this one got fish poop. Some of these need done. Now I got air in the tube, so I lost the siphon. Sometimes you just roll the hose up, and there goes the water. It gets the gravity going. So that's the key, is like crimping the hose to keep your siphon going without fighting to gravity feed it. So I just want to get that fish poop out of there. And I see the next tank. I'll let some of that out. Now here's another thing. Now we don't typically have too many problems in the hatcheries, because we're not putting fish in and out all the time unless it's our own baby fish. At the shop, or if you have multiple tanks, you gotta watch your temperature, and you need to pay attention. If the fish start looking, they're showing signs of being sick, like especially ick, the white parasite, it looks like salt, that's very contagious. So if you go from one tank, your hand, your scrubber, your tube, and then go into your next tank, you could be spreading that parasite from tank to tank, virus, pathogen, etc. So avoid mixing your equipment, your maintenance equipment, etc., even your hands, into an infected tank. Do that on its own. Do it by bucket, then rinse everything in like hot water. You could disinfect with a slight bleach solution in your bucket, rinse it out, rinse the hose, and let it air dry for a couple days. It should be safe then. So, but just, you gotta pay attention. If you don't pay attention is when things go wrong. So, get some slack in the hose. That's pretty much it, but you can do multiple tanks. I can do my other fish room, get the siphon going, have one siphon going here. I could be doing it by bucket. I'd be cleaning lids. I could clean the glass fronts, make them like at least like this one's got algae, and even if it's just a slight algae, even with my hand I can even wipe it off. So at least try to keep my fronts clean so I can see the fish as best possible and make sure everything's okay, healthy, and there's no issues, etc., etc. So basically being a fish poop engineer, technician, blah, blah, blah. So thanks to my son Dylan, he's doing the videoing because I can't hold that phone and be in the tanks at the same time. So, but any questions, shoot, and I'll answer as best I can, as fast as I can, when I can. And subscribe, like, share, hit that bell, and I'll try to bring out more stuff. And watch us on Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah, blah. But y'all have a great weekend. I'm out.